Hey guys, Brașov is honestly one of the prettiest cities I've visited this year. But after spending a full week here, I've been asking myself a different question. Could I actually live here? Or is it somewhere I would only come for a visit? I tend to ask myself this question in most places I travel to. Sometimes a destination is wonderful for a few days, but that doesn't necessarily mean it would suit you for a month or as a permanent home. By the way, one of the pastries you see everywhere here is the Kovrich, which is similar to a German pretzel, but there are so many variations. Some of them are hard in texture, others are softer. I found one variation called Polonaise, which has become my favorite. So basically it looks like this. It is much softer than a regular Kovrich, so it is with chocolate. It's by far my favorite. So today is my last full day in Brașov and I'm going to hike uphill from the Black Tower lookout point. I will take you along as I explore more of the surrounding nature and reflect on my experience here. By the end of the video, I will give you my verdict. Is Brașov somewhere I would visit again? Somewhere I could stay for a month perhaps? Or could I actually live here? So let's begin with the most obvious thing. Brașov is absolutely beautiful. The historic center is compact, colorful, and very easy to explore on foot. It has a distinctly Central European and almost Germanic appearance, which is not a coincidence. Brașov was heavily shaped by the German-speaking Transylvanian Saxons and was historically also known by its German name, Kronstadt. But what makes this city particularly special for me is the combination of architecture and nature. You can be walking through the main square or one of the old streets, and within a very short time, you can find yourself on a trail surrounded by trees. As someone who really loves nature, this immediate access to the mountains has been one of my favorite things about Brașov. You don't have to organize a major day trip or travel for hours. Nature is simply part of this city. I've also really enjoyed the weather. It is August, and while much of Europe is extremely hot at this time of the year, the temperature here has been much more comfortable. It can actually become quite chilly in the evening, so if you visit in Brașov even during August, I would recommend bringing at least one long sleeve top or like a light jacket or hoodie. Another reason I enjoyed my time here is that I learned quite a lot. My favorite place to visit was actually the first Romanian school, located in the historic Shea neighborhood. It is regarded as the first school in the territory of present-day Romania, where Romanian was used as the language of instruction. Today, the building operates as a museum, and it contains old books, manuscripts, and objects connected to the history of Roman education and printing. It may not be the biggest or most famous attraction in Brașov, but for me it was the most memorable. I found it fascinating to learn how education worked at that time and how important this relatively small place was for Romanian language and culture. I also learned more about Brașov's German-speaking Saxon history. Once you understand that, a part of the city's past, the appearance of the historic center begins to make much more sense. Another surprise came when I visited the Black Church. Inside the church, you can see this remarkable collection of Ottoman rugs. These rugs were made in Anatolia, arrived in Brașov through trade, and were later donated to the church by wealthy local families and guilds. I knew that Ottoman carpets were traded and used inside people's homes, but I had never expected to see such a large collection displayed inside a Protestant church in Transylvania. That is one of the things I love most about traveling. You might visit somewhere because it looks beautiful, but then you discover these connections between different cultures and different periods of history. Now, let's talk about how much I actually spent during my week here in Brașov. This isn't intended to be a definitive cost of living analysis. These are simply my personal expenses from 7 nights here, but they should give you a realistic example of what 1 week might cost. Alright, so my accommodation cost was 346 euros for 7 nights, so almost 50 euro per night. This apartment cost the same for 1 or 2 guests. As a matter of fact, I had originally booked it for 2 people because my mom was supposed to join me, but unfortunately she couldn't. So for a couple sharing the apartment, that would work out at approximately 25 euro per person per night, which I think is a pretty good deal. For transportation, my round-trip train journey between Bucharest and Brașov cost 24 euros. Again, I think it's very reasonable for the distance. So here I didn't spend anything on local transportation because I walked everywhere. Other than that, I checked my Wise account and I spent approximately 140 euros on groceries, eating out, museum entrances, and other small expenses. So that brings my total cost for 1 week in Brașov to approximately 510 euros, or roughly 73 euros per day. Of course, if you stayed for an entire month, your average weekly cost could probably be lower. Longer Airbnb bookings often come with better rates, and you would likely develop more of a normal routine rather than eating out and visiting attractions as frequently. This week wasn't purely a vacation for me. I was also working during much of my stay, buying groceries and going into the center mainly during the mornings or evenings. That gave me at least a small impression of what a normal daily routine here might feel like. The walkability would be a major advantage. I didn't need a car and I barely needed public transportation. There is quite a lot of tourism, particularly around the main square and the major attractions. People are constantly arriving and leaving, so I imagine the center might feel very different depending on the season. I can't really judge the social life after only 1 week because I didn't experience enough of it. I also visited during summer, so I cannot tell you what normal life here would feel like during a cold Transylvanian winter. However, if you work remotely or you're a digital nomad, I think Brașov could be a very good place to base yourself for a month. You would have a beautiful and walkable city, immediate access to nature, and the possibility of using Brașov as a base for exploring other places around Transylvania. A month would give you enough time to enjoy the city without rushing, develop a routine, and take some day trips around the region. So after 1 week, here is my honest verdict. Brașov is somewhere I would absolutely visit again. And I could also imagine spending a month here, particularly during summer. But could I live here permanently? My answer is no. Brașov suited me considerably more than Bucharest. The cooler weather, mountains, and access to nature fit me very well. But I didn't feel that deeper personal connection or sense of energy that would make me want to build my life here. That isn't a criticism of Brașov, of course. Choosing where to live is incredibly personal, and the city can be beautiful and enjoyable without necessarily feeling like home. Interestingly, the more I travel, the more I appreciate what I have in the Netherlands. It may not have mountains like these, and the weather is certainly not always ideal, but its rhythm of life simply fits me. Travel doesn't only introduce us to new places, it also helps us understand what we value about the place we already call home. Could you imagine living in Brașov, or would it be more of a travel destination for you? Let me know in the comments. Tomorrow I'm heading back to Bucharest, where I will spend another 2 weeks. I've also planned a day trip to the coastal city of Constanta, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you in the next one.